In what ways did Kant inspire Fichte, Schelling and Hegel? Within his transcendental philosophy, Kant wants to draw the boundaries of what can be known. In this context, the realm of knowable consists of appearances, or in German, Erscheinung, and in English, appearance. Kant, through logical deduction from appearances, states that there must also be things that give rise to appearances, and refers to these as things in themselves, or in German, Ding an sich, and in English, thing in itself. However, human knowledge can only know appearances, not things in themselves. Things in themselves can only be thought about. Kant, starting from the knowledge of appearances, describes nature as the sum total of appearances. The whole that we conceive of as nature is constructed through our cognitive faculties. In this respect, man creates the world he lives in. Kant is confronted with being labelled an idealist because of this understanding. However, Kant, who opposes idealism in the traditional sense, does not accept this label. He even opposes the basic thesis of idealism that there are no things outside the subject. Moreover, he states that if an idealism label is to be attached to him, the label of transcendental idealist would be appropriate. In this respect, Kant argues that there is an external world independent of man, but this world is constructed through the faculties found in man, starting with the form of space and time. What is the source of this freedom? According to Kant, this world, which gives rise to freedom, is an intelligible world. Kant associates this world with the noumenon. We cannot know this world because it is beyond our limits of knowledge, but as rational beings we can possess its ideals. According to Kant, the idea of freedom is such an idea. Because it supports a justified belief and can find a field of application, this field, the field of human actions, the field of practical reason, Kant allows such an idea. In this respect, Kant prepares the ground for a unity of knowledge and belief by accepting, to a certain extent, the belief that he rejected for pure theoretical reason, for practical reason. The problem of the thing in itself and the source of freedom, which opens the way for Kant to a unique idealism, becomes a way out for the German idealists. Starting from these points, the German idealists want to transform Kant's idealism into absolute idealism. Kant had closed the way to the transcendent. Idealists, on the other hand, go full speed ahead on this path, so to speak. Spinoza Jacobi Reinhold is one of the philosophical problems on the agenda in Germany during Kant's lifetime, the problem of the God-universe relationship. Spinoza developed a philosophy based on God in the 17th century. Accordingly, all that exists is derived from God according to a certain order. God is the universe itself. God and nature are one and the same and the source of all beings. In his work Ethica, Spinoza wants to prove morality using a mathematical method. He tries to establish morality by establishing definitions, axioms and propositions similar to what Euclid did in geometry. Just as space is the constituent element of all geometrical objects in terms of geometry, so too, for knowledge, all possibilities are in God. After Spinoza, a debate about Spinoza begins between the German philosophers Moses Mendelssohn and Friedrich Heinrich Jacobi. Jacobi, criticizing Spinoza's method of proof, states that it is a grave mistake to want to prove philosophical truths. According to Jacobi, Spinoza is an important representative of the proving reason. In this context, Jacobi draws a parallel between Kant and Spinoza. According to Jacobi, transcendental idealism turns reality into an illusion by subsuming immediate certainty under provable truth. Karl Leonhard Reinhold defends Kant in this debate. He states that Kantian philosophy is an important way out in order to defend morality and religion. Fichte establishes a system that combines Kant's moral ideal with Spinoza's pantheism. Starting from the moral aspect of man, Fichte conceives of nature on the basis of moral freedom. Fichte, considering the opposition between subject and object, that is, nature, inquires which one is the founder of the other. Influenced by Kant's subject-centered views, he argues that a philosophy starting from the object cannot explain how a conscious self emerges. There is no place for a free subject in a system determined by causal laws. In this context, Fichte starts from a consciousness as a starting point in order to make freedom understandable. Fichte, starting from this understanding, brings the dialectical method to the agenda. In Kant, dialectic is related to wrong thinking, while in Fichte it is used as a method of action. According to Fichte, our knowledge progresses through dialectical processes. This process is as follows. First, a thing is grasped. A is A. Then this thing is separated from other things. A is not non-A. Finally, A and non-A are delimited by a concept. Fichte himself gives the golden example for this process. Gold is not copper. Gold and copper are metal. Schelling is the great romantic philosopher of German idealism. Schelling puts a non-self, nature, opposite Fichte's self and seeks the unity of the two. Schelling wants to achieve the synthesis of the spiritual and physical world with his philosophy. He wants to remedy this deficiency by suggesting that nature is lacking in Fichte's philosophical design. Schelling understands nature as a structure with purpose. All of nature is a totality that develops towards a goal and has stages within itself. According to Schelling, nature carries an organization that emerges from a dormant state and evolves towards development. Schelling, with the concepts of intellectual intuition, intellektuelle Anschauung, that he took from Fichte and Natura naturans that he took from Spinoza, conceives of nature as an organic whole being that constantly opens, creates and produces itself. This organization in nature cannot be conceived without a creative principle. Since the principle in question contains purposes, it must be a spiritual principle, not a physical one. Schelling forms the metaphysical basis of his philosophy of nature through the principle of identity. According to him, nature and spirit, Geist, are identical. All of nature is a living organism from top to bottom. Even inorganic beings carry frozen life. Schelling also applies Fichte's dialectical thought to nature. Nature is dialectical in structure. Everything in nature contains a duality. Dualities carry their opposites to a higher synthesis. There is a synthesis in nature that develops from bottom to top. Man is the high stage of this synthesis. From Schelling's point of view, the spirit in nature is devoid of consciousness. This spirit creates without thinking. All creations are an approach to its own consciousness. Through man, the spirit finds itself by reaching consciousness. It is the intellectual vision that makes visible the connection between the beings created in nature. Schelling, who sees nature as a work of art, also considers the work of art as a universe. Just as the spirit opens itself in nature, it also opens itself in the work of art. The artist takes the source of his creativity from the spirit. Thus, the spirit externalizes itself through the work of art.